On the night of my engagement, I found out what family really meant, at least to mine. While Ryan's parents lit up the hall with music, candles, and a toast that made half the room cry, my phone buzzed with a single line from my mom. "We're not feeling up to a party. Hope it's lovely." I froze, staring at it, praying it was a mistake, some emergency they couldn't explain yet. But minutes later, my aunt tagged every member of my family in a photo: my mom, my dad, my sister, even my cousins lounging beneath a beach umbrella, cocktails in hand. Caption: "Finally together again." I smiled through the pictures and the laughter, but inside, something snapped. That night, I went home, opened my laptop, and canceled the mortgage autopay I'd been covering for them. 6 days later, my father stormed up my driveway, demanding answers I no longer owed him. "My name is Sophia Carter, and until recently, I thought I came from the kind of family you could count on. We were the cliché of suburban Georgia life: cookouts in the cul-de-sac, church potlucks, and neighbors who waved every morning like clockwork. Mom used to bake cookies for my teachers every Christmas. Dad mowed the lawn with military precision, showing me how to line up the stripes like it was sacred knowledge. My sister, Emily, and I built forts out of couch cushions, whispering secrets with flashlights under our chins. Back then, I believed love was permanent. That closeness stitched itself into our DNA. But I should have known threads fray. The unraveling began 2 years ago when I moved in with Ryan Brooks, the man who would become my fiancé. To me, it was natural, the first step toward building a future. To my family, it was betrayal. Mom looked at me like I had confessed to a crime. "You're brushing things off," she said, lips pressed thin. "Brushing what off?" I asked. "Responsibilities. Tradition. The way things are supposed to be." Dad shook his head, muttering like the words themselves tasted bitter. "You're making a mistake, Sophia. You'll regret this." "And Emily?" She didn't mince words. She fired off a text that burned hotter than any lecture. "You only think about yourself." I tried to shrug it off. Families fight, right? They sulk, they simmer, then they come around. That's what I told myself when I hung Christmas lights with Ryan, when I picked out furniture for our tiny apartment, when I answered Mom's calls with cheerful updates even as her voice grew colder. Then Ryan proposed on a crisp October evening, fairy lights strung across his parents' backyard. My hands shook when he slid the ring on my finger, and when I called home, Mom actually cried. "I'm so happy for you, honey," she said, her voice trembling in a way that felt real. Dad's tone softened for the first time in months. "Congratulations, kiddo." Even Emily sent a string of pink hearts, which for her might as well have been a love letter. I let myself believe things had turned, that maybe the distance was closing. But Ryan's parents, Gary and Denise, showed me a different kind of family altogether. Denise slipped me a cardigan when I shivered at dinner. Gary taught me his secret barbecue marinade like I was already his daughter. They didn't measure me against rules or traditions. They just opened the door and said, "Come in, you belong here." For a while, I believed my own family would meet me halfway, that when the engagement party came, they'd show up, clap, maybe even hug Ryan. I kept that hope close, even as little barbs still slipped through conversations. I told myself they'd be there. I was wrong. The morning of my engagement party, the sky felt brighter than it had in months. Ryan was humming while tying his tie, Denise was fussing with the catering checklist, and Gary had already loaded the champagne into the car. My phone buzzed on the dresser. It was Mom. "We're not feeling up to a party today. Hope it's lovely." I stared at the words until the screen dimmed. Ryan leaned in, concerned. "What is it?" "Nothing," I whispered, shoving the phone into my purse. "Probably a misunderstanding." We drove to the hall, a beautiful space in Roswell draped in white and gold. Friends were already arriving, laughter echoing as the band tuned their instruments. Ryan's college friends clapped him on the back. Denise greeted guests with the grace of a queen. I smiled, shook hands, tried not to notice the empty row of chairs with neat little reserve cards that had my parents' names on them. During dinner, Gary raised his glass. "To Sophia and Ryan, may your love outlast every storm." The room erupted in applause. My eyes stung as Ryan squeezed my hand under the table. For a moment, I let myself pretend the missing faces didn't matter. Then my phone buzzed again. Facebook notification. My Aunt Carol had tagged my entire family in a photo. I clicked. There they were, Mom in a floppy sun hat, Dad with a cheap beer and a grin, Emily in sunglasses flashing a peace sign, two cousins beside them. Behind them stretched a beach, waves rolling lazy as if mocking me. Overlaid across the photo, a cheesy filter, and the caption that cut deeper than any insult. Finally together again. I nearly dropped the phone. My chest went hollow. Ryan noticed. Soph, what's wrong? I forced a smile, shaking my head. Nothing, just work, email, but the room blurred. Guests were laughing, clinking glasses, and somewhere behind me, a woman whispered, "Where's her family?" I heard it as clearly as if she had shouted. When the music swelled, I excused myself to the corner where the gift boxes were stacked. I zoomed in on the picture, studying every smile, every grain of sand. Finally together again, without me. Denise found me crouched there. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" I flipped the phone face down. "They couldn't make it," I muttered. "Maybe Mom's not feeling well." She opened her mouth, then closed it. She just rested a hand on my shoulder. I went back to the party, posed for photos, accepted congratulations. I laughed at jokes I didn't hear. By the time we got home, my cheeks ached from smiling. Ryan shut the door gently behind us. "Talk to me, Soph." "They went on vacation," I said flatly. "During my engagement party." His face hardened. "Say the word and we'll confront them tomorrow." I shook my head. "No, I'm done chasing." That night, after hanging my gown back in the closet, I sat at my laptop, logged into my bank, and scrolled to the mortgage autopay. My parents' house. My money. I hovered, then clicked cancel. A strange calm washed over me. For the first time, I wasn't their safety net. 6 days later, I heard the roar of my father's truck before I saw it. The sound scraped against my nerves, low and angry, as it pulled into our driveway without even slowing. Ryan was at work, so it was just me and the rosemary bushes I'd been watering. I dropped the hose when Dad slammed his door shut. "Inside," he barked. Not even a hello. I folded my arms. "We can talk out here." He stalked closer, the gravel crunching beneath his boots. "Do you think this is funny?" "What?" I asked, though I knew. "You cut off the mortgage payments," he spat. His face was flushed, not from the sun but from fury. "Do you have any idea what that's done to us?" My chest tightened, but I kept my voice level. "Do you have any idea what you did to me?" He blinked, thrown for a moment. "What are you talking about?" "The engagement party," I said. "The party you RSVP'd for. The party Mom texted about that very morning. While I was greeting guests, you were drinking beer on a beach. And you think I'm the problem?" His jaw clenched. "You don't talk to me like that. I'm still your father." "Then act like one." The words tore out of me. "A father shows up. A father doesn't humiliate his daughter on the most important day of her life." He tried to stare me down, but my anger held. "We weren't feeling up to it," he muttered, like that was an excuse carved in stone. I laughed, sharp and bitter. "So, you were too tired to come celebrate me, but not too tired to pose for beach photos?" He stepped closer. "We counted on you, Sophia. The house, the bills you were supposed to help." "I did help," I snapped. "For years. I paid your mortgage, your taxes, even Emily's car repairs. And what did I get back? A beach photo with a caption that said, 'Finally, together again. Without me.'" His voice dropped. "Family means sacrifice." "Exactly," I said coldly. "I've sacrificed enough. And if family doesn't mean showing up when it matters, then maybe I don't have a family anymore." The silence between us was jagged. Dad's mouth opened, then shut again. He looked at me like he was waiting for me to back down, to apologize, to fix it like I always did. But I didn't. Finally, he shook his head. "You'll regret this." I steadied my voice. "No, Dad, you will." He turned, climbed back into his truck, and slammed the door. The engine growled as he reversed out, tires spitting gravel down the street. I stood there with my hands trembling, but it wasn't fear. It was something new, something sharper freedom laced with grief. When Ryan came home that evening, he found me still on the porch. "What happened?" he asked. I looked him straight in the eye. "I told my dad he's not entitled to me anymore." The morning after Dad's visit, my phone lit up with a string of texts from Emily. "You're being childish. The beach trip was on the calendar for months. You knew we weren't coming. Stop acting like the victim. You always make things about you." I stared at the words until they blurred. Not one apology. Not even acknowledgement of what they had done. Just jabs dressed up as concern. That afternoon, an email pinged from Aunt Carol. "Hope everything's okay. We missed seeing you at the beach. Love, Carol." I almost laughed. She hadn't missed me, she'd broadcast my absence like a headline. And Mom? Silence. She hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't even posted her usual string of inspirational quotes. The void was louder than Emily's accusations. Ryan noticed me scrolling, my jaw tight. "Delete them," he said. "Don't give them oxygen." But silence hurt as much as the words. 2 days later, Gary and Denise invited us over. When we arrived, the dining table was already set, iced tea glasses sweating on the placemats. Denise had a manila folder waiting, and that alone made my stomach twist. I sat down. "What's this?" Denise slid a stack of photos across the table. "Pictures from your engagement party. Not the ones you posted, the ones people took when they thought no one was looking." I picked them up, my breath catching. Guests whispering to each other, eyes darting toward the empty chairs with my family's names on them. One woman's lips clearly forming the words, "Where are they?" Denise's voice was calm but sharp. "That wasn't just your embarrassment, Sophia. It was ours too." Gary leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Your parents made a statement by not showing up. Now it's our turn." I looked between them, heart pounding. "What does that mean?" Denise's eyes softened, but her words didn't. "It means we're not going to let them keep hurting you. You're not their little helper anymore. You're not a backup spouse when your dad doesn't feel like dealing with life. You don't owe them money, time, or loyalty they refuse to return." I tried to protest, but my throat closed. For years I'd been the one patching things up, smoothing edges, explaining away their absence. Now someone else was calling it what it was: cruelty. Gary reached across the table, his hand warm on mine. "We show up, Sophia. That's the difference." Something in me broke then, not from pain, but from relief. Tears slipped before I could stop them. I whispered, "Thank you." And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't standing alone. 3 days after that dinner, Denise picked up the phone. I didn't hear the whole conversation, but I caught fragments drifting through the kitchen window. Her voice was calm, razor sharp. "No, Diane," she said into the receiver. "She's not your little helper anymore. She's not your backup spouse. And she doesn't owe you a damn thing." I froze, my hand tightening on the dish towel. There was a pause. Then Denise added, softer but even firmer, "If you want Sophia back, try being someone worth coming back to." The line went dead. Denise hung up without a goodbye. She walked back into the living room, expression smooth as glass. "Handled," she said, as if she'd just canceled a hair appointment, not detonated a decades-old family dynamic. I wanted to protest, to tell her she'd gone too far, but my throat wouldn't work. A part of me was horrified. Another part wanted to clap. 3 days later, the rumble of a trailer woke me from an afternoon nap. Ryan and I stepped outside, blinking against the sun. Gary's truck was backing into our driveway, something massive hitched behind it. Denise stepped out of the passenger seat, waving like it was Sunday brunch. "Surprise!" she called. The trailer door opened, and there it was. A brand new Cadillac XT6, midnight blue, a glossy red bow slashed across its hood like a scarlet declaration. I gasped. What is this?" Gary grinned. "You'll need something decent to drive to the wedding venue walkthroughs." I shook my head, stepping back. "This is too much. I can't." Denise pressed the keys into my palm. "Yes, you can." Neighbors began to gather, curious. Curtains twitched. A child on a bike circled slowly, pointing. The Cadillac gleamed like a trophy on display. My stomach twisted. Ryan whispered, "It's theirs to give, Soph. Not your parents to take away." I swallowed hard, blinking against the sting in my eyes. It wasn't just a car. It was a message, bold as neon. "We choose you." 2 days later, Emily stormed into the pharmacy where I worked. Her cheeks were flushed, her ponytail frayed. She didn't even say hello, just slammed her hands on the counter. "Are you seriously okay with this?" she hissed. "Emily, I'm at work. Taking handouts from his parents?" Her voice cracked with outrage. "Parading around in their car while mom can't even sleep at night?" I set the prescription bottle down slowly. "Handouts usually come with strings. Do you know what Gary and Denise ask of me?" Emily's eyes narrowed. "What?" "That I be happy." She blinked, caught off guard. For once, she had no comeback ready. I leaned closer. "Can you say the same about our parents?" Her lips parted, then closed. She turned, muttering, "You've changed." "Yes," I said softly. "I have." She stormed out, and I watched her walk across the parking lot, her shoulders stiff, her steps clipped. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt done. That evening, Ryan and I sat on the porch, watching the Cadillac glow under the streetlight. "It's not about the car," I murmured. "I know," Ryan said. "It's about who shows up." I nodded. "And who doesn't?" The silence stretched, heavy but not suffocating. For years, I'd equated family with sacrifice, my sacrifice. But sitting there with Ryan, the keys cold in my hand, I realized maybe family was supposed to feel like this. Not a burden, but a refuge. Still, in the back of my mind, I knew it wasn't over. My parents wouldn't stay quiet. They never did. The Cadillac wasn't just a gift. It was a declaration of war. The Cadillac hadn't cooled in the driveway before Gary sat me down at their kitchen table. He slid a thick folder across to me. "You and Ryan shouldn't start your marriage in debt," he said. "You've carried enough burdens that weren't yours to carry." I opened the folder and froze. Inside was a cashier's check, large enough for a down payment on a new house. My throat tightened. "I can't take this," I whispered. "Yes, you can," Denise said firmly. "No strings, not a loan, a gift." Ryan gripped my hand under the table. His voice shook. "They mean it. Soph." I tried to argue, but Denise just raised her eyebrow, the way my mom used to when I was a child, except Denise's look didn't scold. It insisted on my worth. 2 weeks later, Ryan and I signed the papers on a modest but beautiful home. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future, not tethered to obligations I never chose. But peace was temporary. One afternoon, an envelope arrived in the mail. No return address, just my name scrawled in my mother's looping cursive. I sat in the garage on an overturned paint bucket, the smell of oil thick in the air, and opened it. It wasn't an apology, not even close. "We've been hearing things about this new trust. We just want to make sure everything you're doing is really in your best interest. Don't let people buy your loyalty. You still have a real family." I laughed, sharp, bitter. Buy my loyalty? After all the years I'd given them money without asking for a dime back? I shoved the letter in a drawer with old receipts. But Denise found out anyway. Not from me, Dad called her directly. Through the sliding glass door, I heard her side of the conversation. "Concerned? Richard, if you want her back, try being someone worth coming back to." Her voice cut clean, leaving no air for rebuttal. But it didn't end there. 3 days later, another letter arrived, this one from an attorney. A lawsuit. They listed everything. The down payment I'd gifted them 5 years ago, the car I co-signed for Emily, even appliances I'd ordered online during their kitchen renovation. In cold black ink, every kindness had been twisted into a loan. They weren't just ignoring what I'd done, they were rewriting history. Ryan found me at the kitchen counter, the papers spread like shards of glass. His face darkened. "They're suing you?" "Apparently," I whispered, "for giving them everything they couldn't afford on their own." He picked up the phone without hesitation. "I'm calling Gary." Within hours, Gary had a friend, a sharp lawyer from college, sitting across from us. The man didn't flinch, as I explained, didn't raise an eyebrow at the absurdity. He simply tapped the papers and said, "We have more than enough for a counterclaim." And so, for the first time, I fought back, not with silence, not with desperate explanations, but with law. 2 days later, our counterclaim was filed. Mortgage reimbursements, unpaid car repairs, damages for harassment. The numbers weren't just bigger than theirs, they were real. That night, Ryan found me staring at the Cadillac in the driveway, its paint catching the moonlight. "This isn't what I wanted," I said softly. "I know," he replied. "But it's what they pushed you into." I leaned into him, the fight buzzing in my veins. For years, my parents had trained me to believe love was a ledger I could never balance. Now, finally, I was learning that loyalty couldn't be bought or sued out of me. But deep down, I knew something else. My parents wouldn't retreat. Silence from them never meant surrender. It meant plotting. And the wedding was still ahead. We kept the wedding small on purpose. After lawsuits, letters, and a Cadillac glowing like a beacon in our driveway, Ryan and I wanted peace. Just 62 people. Every guest earned their seat. Except 2. A week before the ceremony, an RSVP envelope arrived in the mail. My parents' names were checked. "Will attend." No note, no phone call. Just a pair of printed names dropped like a pebble in a pond. Denise wanted them banned. Ryan asked if I was sure, but I told him yes, I wanted them there. Not to reconcile, not to talk. Just to sit in the back and feel the distance they had carved with their own hands. The evening of the wedding, the sun melted into the lake behind the hilltop venue. The jazz trio strummed softly. I stood behind the doors with my bouquet, the lace of my gown brushing against my wrists. 5 minutes before the ceremony, the doors creaked open. Whispers rippled through the guests. I didn't need to turn to know. They walked in together like a divorced couple pretending to be civil. Dad in a wrinkled sport coat, sunglasses perched absurdly on his face indoors. Mom in a high-collared black dress that looked more like mourning than celebration. They slid into the last row, eyes forward, mouths stiff. No one greeted them. No one dared. The music swelled. I stepped into the aisle, my heart pounding, not from nerves but from defiance. Ryan's eyes found mine, steady and certain. I didn't glance at the back row. I didn't need to. When Denise cried during my vows and Gary looked at me like I was his own daughter, I felt something I hadn't in months. Stillness. By the time the cake was wheeled out, my parents were gone. They'd slipped away as silently as they had arrived. Relief washed over me until a server approached, holding a small white envelope. "Someone asked me to give this to you," she said. "Told me not to open it until you got home." My stomach dropped. I knew before I even touched it. That night, after the last dance, after Ryan carried me across the threshold of our new house, I sat in the living room, still in my gown. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside was a folded note and a check. The note read, "Returning what you think we owe you. We won't be contacting you again." The check was for 28,000. Every penny I had ever given them, mortgage payments, property taxes, Emily's car, the credit card Dad maxed during the pandemic, all tallied, all squared. I stared at the stiff handwriting. My name on the check looked foreign, like it belonged to someone else. Ryan crouched beside me. "What is it?" I handed him the paper. He read silently, then exhaled. "They turned your love into a balance sheet." I nodded, tears blurring the numbers. "It feels like a divorce." For years, I had prayed for closure, for some olive branch. Instead, I got a transaction. They hadn't just walked away, they'd erased me, line by line, dollar by dollar. I pressed the check against my chest. I thought I'd feel free. Instead, I felt hollow. "Cash it," Ryan said softly. I looked up, startled. "Cash it," he repeated. "Not because you need it, but because it's the only honest thing they've ever done." For a long time, I just sat there, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the rustle of my dress. Then, slowly, I nodded. They had given me the final word, and it still felt like losing. After the check cleared, it was as if my parents had never existed. No calls, no sarcastic comments online. The family group chat went silent, like someone had ripped the cord from the wall. Holidays came and went without a single text. Christmas we spent in Colorado with Gary and Denise. Snow piled against the windows while we made soup and watched old movies. For the first time, I woke up without waiting for a guilt-laced voicemail. It should have felt like peace, and mostly, it did. But grief lingered, quiet and unexpected. Not for them exactly, but for the idea of them. For the version of family I used to believe in. The one where parents came through, no matter how messy things got. By Memorial Day, Gary and Denise invited us to their lake house. After dinner, Denise slid a small package wrapped in tissue paper across the table. "This is for you and Ryan," she said. I unwrapped it slowly. Inside lay a single brass key, polished to a shine. "To the lake house," Gary explained. "Figured it was time it belonged to more than just us. The deed will follow in a few years, but it's yours now, to build on, to pass down someday." I couldn't speak. My throat closed. "You've already earned it, Sophia," Denise said gently. "You just had the wrong people measuring your worth." That night, lying awake beside Ryan, I turned the key over and over in my hand. For years, I'd begged scraps of affection from people who kept me starving. Now, love was handed to me in abundance. A few weeks later, a cardboard box arrived on our porch. No note, no return label. Inside were 2 childhood trophies, a cracked baby photo in its frame, and an old hoodie I'd left behind years ago. They'd kept the expensive gifts, the furniture, the electronics I'd bought them. What they sent back were pieces of me. Ryan asked softly, "What are you going to do with it?" I shrugged, closing the box. "I guess this is their version of closure." And just like that, the door shut for good. Now, I have a new family. Not perfect, but present. Not measured in dollars or obligations, but in loyalty that doesn't vanish at the first sign of inconvenience. It's strange to feel grateful and grieving at the same time, but I've learned both can live inside me, and I've stopped mourning what I never truly had.